Everything we know, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. Join us on the Simulationist podcast as we explore our culture of simulation.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Simulationist podcast. This is the 211th iteration of the show. Wow, that's a big number. I recorded on the 27th of September, 2016, and I am Josh Trelevin, and with me in his own living room,
hoping for Halloween to get here just a little bit quicker, Ryan Kirkby.
Halloween coming up. It is fall.
Well,
I guess.
So that's the thing. It's going to be a very special Halloween for me. This is one of the first years that Zoe will be able to help choose Halloween costumes rather than just we'll put something on her and then we'll go out and get candy, right?
Yep.
And it looks like I'll be able to get 2 family members with us for Halloween, so it'll be a big old family Halloween.
Nice.
Which always makes the holiday better.
Yeah, well, family, of course.
But here's the thing, though, is that my wife has found a very nice costume for Zoe, and that's going to be the basis for our theme. And she's got a Little Red Riding Hood outfit. So she'll be as Little Red Riding Hood. I guess my wife will pick up another one, and she'll be... I won't call her Big Red Riding Hood, because she's not a big lady, so I guess she'll just be Medium Red Riding Hood. Or Red Riding Hood and Little Red Riding Hood.
Mama Red Riding Hood.
Maybe, yeah.
And Papa Red Riding Hood.
No, in my case, the concept was either I'm going to wind up being the big bad wolf or the woodsman. Unfortunately, Zoe has shown that she's at that weird critical thing where seeing the image of a skeleton next to a graveyard is still really scary. Like, if I was to show you an image of a skeleton, made out of plastic, standing next to a plastic, like gravestone, on a scale of 1 to 10, how scared do you think you'd be?
0.
Yeah. Yeah, it's real. But for Zoe, it really hit some sort of primal nerve.
Yeah.
And there's a local store, seasonal thing. The Spirit of Halloween is what it's called. I guess it's a bit of like should it be called a national store chain if it only is still seasonal?
It's national if it exists in other places in this nation.
Okay, in that case, yes, it's national.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, it's big enough that it is able to carry its own brand. Like Spirit brand. Earlier on, we were able to get it wasn't an actual lightsaber; it was a space saber. Mm-hmm. But it was $6 cheaper, and it had a light up and sound effects.
Perfect.
So what? I'm going to take spend more money and get less? No. But yeah, it was their name brand. So I figured they're probably national, in this regard then, or probably international. They're probably in America too. Look them up.
Okay.
Find them up. They have good quality stuff, but they do have a lot of things that are incredibly scary for Zoe.
Uh-huh.
And so I showed her a few masks and a few options like this and like that, and she said, oh, it's so scary, Dad. She wouldn't even get close to a few of them. She was so frightened, she wouldn't even grab any of the plastic weapons that looked grim and bloody.
And she wants to be Little Red Riding Hood?
Oh, yeah, she likes the outfit.
So that's more of is Riding Hood a hero? Not really. I mean, she's better than Goldilocks. But
she's more towards classic Disney princess in that she is not antagonistic, yet doesn't actually do anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she still doesn't do much, but yeah.
She informs the wolf and gets eaten, and then, depending on the story, sometimes she gets the notion to put rocks in his belly after they've sliced him open.
Okay. So she's a better little girl than Goldilocks, who actually goes into strangers.
Yeah, Goldilocks was breaking and entering, and by the way, I will note the original versions for her. She was like an old crone that cussed like a sailor.
Oh, okay. So
yeah.
Goldilocks was older. But she became, later versions, made her a little girl.
With gold hair, too. I guess where she got the name Goldilocks. Before that, when she was just the old crone, she was just called the Three Bears.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So Goldilocks got introduced.
Yeah. Yeah, the old lady got replaced with a young girl to make her a little bit more sympathetic. Because, honestly, it was an old lady, swore like a sailor, was literally busting into people's homes. She was literally a break-and-enter robber.
It would be funny, though, if it was a sequel. These 3 bears just keep having people, breaking into their house. And, first it was an old lady, then it's Goldilocks. Who's next?
They are talking bears, so I am going to, say there's a good chance at an extended lifespan. But that said, I mean, back when it was the old lady, it was just 3 bears: a big bear, a small bear, and a medium bear.
Yeah.
Whereas when it was Goldilocks, it was like Mama Bear, Papa Bear, Baby Bear.
And was this Charles Perrault, or it sounds like a Perrault story, but I don't know.
It's one of the classic older ones. I don't think there's an official author attributed to the story.
Well, even if there is, it would have been, he probably, like Perrault borrowed his stories from previous sources, similar to the Brothers Grimm.
He probably wound up putting the Goldilocks spin on it, if anything.
It may be in the Brothers Grimm, actually. I don't know.
But yeah, like the 3 bears were just like 3 bears. Like you could make a real good like gay allegory for just like it's okay to have gay people living together. I mean, they're just 3 bears, man. You could take the term bear and apply it.
Like before we had them being a family, it was just 3 bears. Yeah,
just 3 bears, man, just living together. Big bear, little bear, medium bear.
I don't know if they had the idea of the gay bear back then, but
no, but it works well if you want to like take the more classic end of it and modernize it so that they're 3 bears. They're just 3 hairy guys of different sizes.
What do you think
all living together.
If Red Riding Hood and Goldilocks met up? Would they do you think they would? I guess this is getting into our topic ahead of time, but do you think they would help each other avoid bears and wolves, or do you think they would amplify their stupidity?
Well, that's the thing.
I shouldn't say stupidity, but in some cases, yeah.
Naivete. Yes. Let's see here. That's the thing is the bears, especially by the time they're a family, did not seem at all bad, except for on the topic of home invasion. So if there's anything, I could see them being neighbors, not close neighbors, but neighbors with Grandma and helping out against the wolf. Okay. But in which case that would put the 3 bears and Red Riding Hood on the same side, which would make Goldilocks antagonistic towards them. So maybe Goldilocks is on the side with the wolf. I mean, they're both big onto going into people's houses and messing stuff up and eating things. The wolf prefers whole grandmas, whereas Goldilocks kind of digs eating porridge.
I guess Goldilocks could be another animal of some kind, even a golden-haired wolf or something like that.
Not bad. Or it could just be one of those mixed families sort of thing. The wolf finds little Goldilocks when she's just a thing, and she's raised by wolves. That would go a long way to excusing her habit of busting into people's homes if the big bad wolf was her father.
Yeah. Although, do we know how hungry and tired Goldilocks, was she lost, or did she just...
that would be a very good spin on it, but no, if I just been told she was a curious little girl that was wandering around in the woods.
Just felt like eating... Well, she must have been hungry, obviously. She was hungry because she
at least enough to eat 1 bowl of porridge.
Yeah.
But I mean, you get that way after exploring the woods. I imagine though that Red Riding Hood would have to be somewhat younger than Goldilocks for age-wise, because Goldilocks is going out and about and exploring the woods on her own, whereas Red Riding Hood is just going along the trail
where she's supposed to go. Yeah.
She's just trying to get from A to B. Whereas Goldilocks is just, taking the sightseeing tour through the woods and seeing what she can find.
Okay.
But I do approve this headcanon you've made for me, whereas Goldilocks was raised by wolves, or at least one big bad wolf, and that's why she's busting into houses.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not really her fault, she just doesn't know any better. That's just how she was raised, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so I kind of dig that. It's really sad, though, that her foster dad meets his end, in the boiling pot, after trying to break into the 3rd pig's house through the chimney.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of harsh.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you're going to be in that lifestyle, you got to know there's only going to wind up being a few outcomes happening for you.
If you're a wolf who eats...
If you're busting into people's homes, there's only going to be a few endings for you. You either... get the big score and have enough to stop doing it. You do it all your life, get hounded, for the entire time, or you get killed for busting into somebody's home, and when they have a way to stop you.
So you should only eat pigs if they've been properly raised and killed in a slaughterhouse.
Yeah. That's the 4th little pig's house. No one mentions that one. The slaughterhouse.
That's where he should have gone. He could have bought like a full butchered pig already.
But here's the thing. Would you go to a pig's butcher house and buy pig? Buy some pork off it?
The pig is also the butcher.
That is like 7 levels of twisted, like right there. This is
it's
like
a level of twisted, yeah. Okay.
No, there's multiple levels going on there, and I'm gonna say just like doing a quick scan of my brain as to how messed up that is. That's like 7 levels of weirdness going on there.
Okay.
This little pig, like this is the sort of thing where you go to the fourth little pig's house, the slaughterhouse. You knock on the door, and he opens up, and he's wearing a mask made out of other pigs, like skins. Man, it's like messed up, man.
And he's got like a football that he's
eating pepperoni. Yeah, what do you want?
Football in one hand, pepperoni in the other hand.
I dig it. I really dig it, and I think there's room for like the fourth little pig as like some sort of twisted fairy tale. So I'm gonna have to put a pin in that.
Okay, yeah.
But we're gonna trace back to where my story was, and that Zoe was afraid to even look at most of the weapons. If the weapon looked somewhat gory, she didn't even want it. I found like a few like knockoff Mjolnirs, like Thor hammers.
Yep.
And like even them, she like didn't really want to touch it, man. Like we've got like a Mjolnir here, like actually like approved by Marvel and all that sort of stuff. And it's like she loves that one. She'll wield that wonderfully. But she was so afraid the only weapons she wanted to touch were the ones that were connected to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I like how you have the Scandinavian myth. Oh no, it's got to be approved by Disney.
Well, that's the thing. Is there's like like Nordic hammer, and then you've got actual designed by the people who are in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, but you should be able to say Thor's hammer. You should be able to say Mjolnir.
Yes.
But I guess people.
Well, that's the thing. Is despite the fact it's Mjolnir, when I bought the hammer, it was labeled as Thor's hammer.
Yeah.
Because, apparently even the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the people like selling products thereof realize not a lot of people are going to remember what the heck Mjolnir is. We're just going to have to label this Thor's hammer.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, she didn't want to touch anything like that. Yeah. The only thing I got her to be even okay with that was vaguely wolf resembling was actually a white fox sort of mask. Mm-hmm. She kind of liked it because it was super fluffy. So big bad wolf, no. Big fluffy wolf, yeah. That's how I might have to go.
I guess she isn't at the point where she wants to be scary. Like it's kind of fun to be scared sometimes, but she'll like when she takes the role of Halloween on herself, she's like, no, I want to be a pretty Riding Hood with a fluffy wolf.
Well, there's some ideas where she was looking a little bit more, like radical, man. And she was putting the concept for Darth Vader. Like, could I be Darth Vader? It's like, maybe if we can find a good costume. Mm-hmm. But she kind of fell in love with it's a really well made costume for her, really nice and thick. So if it winds up being a cold Halloween, she'll still be warm. So that's nice.
I'll ask you this: have you ever felt like did you really want to scare people with the costume? Have you ever felt like have you ever gone for a costume because it was scary?
I have regretted wearing costumes that weren't scary enough in my standards.
Okay.
Before I knew that people were actually afraid of clowns, I did not like it when I had to dress up as a clown for Halloween when I was young.
Okay.
Because who the heck is afraid of a clown?
So you did go for scary, okay.
I did. It's Halloween. You find the scariest thing, and then bam, that's you. You are the scariest thing.
Well, I like the idea, but it's weird. It never hit me that way. I don't know if it was a parents thing or just I never clicked, but Halloween for me was always just interesting or like a robot or something weird. Or
well, yeah, there's the cool factor in there,
okay.
Definitely.
Yeah.
They never deny the cool factor on whatever you're going at.
But I was never interested in being scary.
But for me, it was always nice. It's like, how can you be afraid of anything when you are the scariest thing out there?
Yeah.
It's like, it's something I tell my daughter when she's like afraid of the dark. It's like, what if there's monsters out there? I say to her, don't worry, you've got me. And the monsters are afraid of me because there's nothing scarier than an angry daddy.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, yes, that's right. And then she's perfectly fine to walk in the dark, man, because whatever monster she finds, she'll send them my way. It's nothing. So, I guess it's a mental philosophy for Halloween, which is maybe why I like it so much. I find it to be incredibly empowering. But I might have to be the big fluffy wolf this year. But here's the thing. Some of these wolf masks there are something like $70. They're really good with like an actual moving jaw, so you can arm them out and you can actually move.
Ooh, cool.
Yeah, which is nice. But bit of a price tag.
Yeah. So it might last you for years, though.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm not going to outgrow this mask, sort of thing.
You'll be buried in it.
That would be an amazing thing to make sure I've got set up for any grave robbers that come to, get me later on, right? Just like, okay, bury me in the mask and get a whole lot of wolfsbane to put on top of, the whole thing.
And, stake your heart just to also, for some reason.
No, because that's the thing. It's like the second in the Wolfman series from Universal. Larry Talbot's dead, and there's some, grave robbers that go into to bust in the grave and see what they can loot. He's been dead for 4 years, so this is pretty much a good thing, right? Mm-hmm. They open up the coffin. There's, a whole bunch of wolfsbane over on top. They, take it all off, and then, the light from the full moon shines through the crypt door onto the coffin, and then, bam, he is up and alive. And that actually winds up being, a point. You can't be Larry Talbot. He died 4 years ago. It's like, well, then who the heck am I? Because, the fingerprints match.
It's just, I'm not picturing your grave robbers, although maybe, they're simulationist aficionados. This is, 100 years in the future, so...
They are really, we become, a big old thing, posthumously.
We die, and then we become famous after death. And then they're like, I'm going to, find his grave, and
I'm going to take his skull, man, so I can have his skull on my TV.
So unless they're that kind of nerd, I wasn't expecting them to know the lore of the Wolfman and have watched the movie and recognize the scene.
But that's the thing. By the time one of them has had a heart attack, the other one flees, and the cops come. That's only half the story. The other half is telling, in the newspapers or whatever they're going to have in the 100 years in the future.
Yeah.
I hope they still have at least some newspapers around. They're going to wind up telling the story of how this man managed to effectively recreate the start of the second Wolfman movie from the Universal, mythos to enact the same revenge that happened to the people in the movie. I just think there's a nice beauty in there.
And I guess it makes sense because it's your thing, so you would want it to be accurate. But I was just thinking the effect on the grave robbers would be, I don't know.
Hey, man, if I can get one heart attack, if I can take one of them down with me before they take whatever I've got on me, which probably shouldn't be a lot.
Don't bury your stuff with you. What do you maybe a wedding ring or something, or maybe even that. Probably that could pass on to your kids.
That's the thing is I just don't know what I'd wind up putting with me. I mean, the ring I gave my wife is the ring my dad gave, my mom, sort of thing. So, there's no way that it should be buried with. It should continue with the family. It's the family ring.
Yeah.
So I can't think of anything aside from maybe some photos of my loved ones would take it with me, a nice little book, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
I can't think of anything else I'd really want to take with me to the grave.
I mean, you'd probably want to be buried in some kind of clothing, but even that could just be what the funeral home provides.
It really doesn't need to even fit me that well. I mean, it's not like I'm going to wind up being uncomfortable about it, right?
Exactly.
It can be made of itchy burlap for all I care, as long as it looks good when the open coffin thing goes around. But that's the thing. It's I have to find either it's some sort of compromise on price or quality here, because Zoe's going to wind up being afraid, and I might not be able to wear this for very long before I wind up spooking her too much. It better be a cheap little outfit, right? I'm wearing. So I might have to go hunting around, or alternatively, for 2/3 the price, for $50, I could buy an authentic chainsaw sort of thing. You actually push a button, run, and the things go around. So I could be the woodsman, just get myself a good flannel jacket and all that sort of thing. Or maybe, if I can find them on sale, I can be both. The woodsman is the werewolf. I can be the werewolf woodsman.
I like it.
Yeah, a crossed mythos there. But, I'll have to see. I mean, this isn't New York City. There's only so many places to go shopping for Halloween supplies.
Okay. Well, I mean, technically you have eBay and, the whole internet open to you.
Mind you, there is a time limit coming up sort of thing. If you want to get stuff delivered, this is their Christmas, right? They're shipping out a lot of stuff these days.
True, yeah. You better order it by the time this podcast goes up.
And, well, here's the thing, is my wife is already looking into costumes for next year.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. She's found a very good, very reasonably priced Jedi Master, outfit for me to wear.
Cool.
Spoiler alert, I might not just wear it for Halloween. It looks really comfortable.
Just wear it around the house.
Yeah.
House robe.
Admittedly, they do kind of look like they've got the martial artist outfit, and then a brown bathrobe over top for their style. So
Yeah.
I could probably get away with it. But, yeah, my wife's already looking into next year because she's that much on the ball. So, but, you know, like, God bless my daughter. She's tried, and I managed to get her into the store and actually looking at this stuff, even if I couldn't keep her there for very long. So at least I got an idea. Like, if I'm going for, like, a werewolf costume, it better be the fluffiest darn werewolf I can possibly get.
Okay.
Maybe with a tail. That was Zoe's idea. If I'm a werewolf, I should have a tail.
You don't see too much of the werewolves' tails in the visual depictions of them.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess if they're wearing pants, it's kind of hidden down a pant leg, right?
I guess so, yeah.
Maybe that's why they're so angry. Because it's really, really uncomfortable. And every time they have to sit down like a person, it's like, right on the tail. Because admittedly, like, if you hurt your tailbone and you got to sit down, that's really painful. Now imagine actually having a tail to go with that tailbone.
Yeah.
So, issues. But yeah, you know, I'm quite happy that my daughter was brave enough to go in again and actually go far into the depths of it. Even though like my wife was able to, you know, like she like puts her hand, you know, like on my daughter's neck and she's able to feel the pulse. So this was good for her, like to see her test her boundaries, and I'm quite happy for that this week. But we do have a notion, sort of thing. Sometimes we have conspiracy theories, but Josh has a nice notion this week for how to boost up your imagination.
Yeah, maybe it's a little dumb, but I'm just going to bring it up, and our listeners
I think it's quite nice.
What it's worth.
Yeah.
I suppose, like, I just had this thought when I was riding the bus, because when you ride the bus, there are it's very diverse often. There's a lot of different types of people on the bus. Often minorities, students, immigrants. We live in a town with a university, so international students on the bus.
What's the thing? I mean, like, aside from like the wealthy elite, you know, that you know have their own vehicle and whatever, so they never need to use the bus. Which, you know, depending on who you talk to, it doesn't have the same diversification that the rest of the population does. A bus is a great way to see a good cross sample, you know, selection of what the location is like.
Yeah, but I just realized that probably doesn't have too much with what I was actually bringing up.
But it does bring up a good diversity of personalities and appearances.
Yeah, it gives you a range of people to pick from, because I guess I was doing some people watching on the bus. And it was sort of like my mind was wandering.
Make sure it's people watching, not people staring. You don't want to be the guy that stares at other people on the bus. No. Yeah.
That's gonna happen,
there's like unless there's like not a lot of room and you kind of want people to back off from you, then start staring.
All right. Yeah. I was picturing each of the people on the bus, like, what if I watched them, like, each one at a time, kind of in a talk show environment, like if they're an actor or something, like, and imagine
meet the actor studio.
Yeah, I'm talking to, you know, some interviewer, I don't know, Larry
What if
King,
you're James Lipton?
Or James Lipton, yeah. And interviewing, like, each one of these, and I would sort of pick out each person, and I would sort of think of a thing that they might be famous for. Like, might just be that they're in a movie, or maybe they wrote a paper, maybe they're a scientist, a famous.
So, you know, they could be on like any of the late night talk shows as well.
Sure, yeah, and this is my imagination, so I'll go ahead and stretch.
Well, the thing is, Johnny Carson had a lot of people on there, you know, like, oh, hey, look, you know, like, I'm, you know, holding this hawk on my glove, and they had stupid, you know, like, people tricks with Letterman. So I think you could find a good excuse to have a lot of people on.
Yeah, and so I was able to, like, for each person I saw on the bus, I was able to actually sort of construct that, you know, picture in my head and sort of imagine them there. So there wasn't anyone on the bus that I thought was, well, they'd never, like, they don't have the look. I thought everyone kind of did. But
so you
maybe
can picture anyone famous for some reason. You got a backstory.
Yeah, I think so. And the other thing was so the second half of that thought was that I was sort of imagining celebrities then in my head, like actual real celebrities, and like what would they be like if they like worked in the kitchen with me, or if they worked, you know, in sort of a regular job, and what would that be like if they if you didn't know them. Yeah.
I won't lie, I haven't done that with many real world celebrities, but I have done it with superheroes.
Oh yeah.
Like, okay, Peter Parker doesn't have to be Spider-Man. Like, would he really be able to make it as like an actual scientist? Turns out the current answer is yes. He has his own like corporation, the Parker Corporation now.
Yeah.
He's been able to use his inventions for public good and make a decent profit off it.
I mean, in a lot of ways, I have my theory of humanity is that humanity is adaptable, and generally, like, even if you think somebody probably couldn't do a job, if you gave them the right motivations and right reasons, like if they wanted to be there, I think almost anybody can do almost any job. But
yeah, but where would they most likely to be? Like, let's picture a world without superheroes.
Yeah.
What would Scott Summers be doing if he didn't need to be Cyclops?
I guess he would be doing just a regular job, like, right?
Well, that's the thing, is like he's got leadership skills, sort of thing, and he definitely seems to like to put himself into a position of leadership power.
So he might go into the military or something? Police?
Maybe towards the police. I can definitely see him being like a police officer, Officer Summers.
Yeah.
Whereas, what would Logan do? What would Wolverine if he hadn't been killed? He is still dead, I believe, officially right now. So what would Wolverine be doing?
He'd be out chopping wood somewhere.
Well, see, that's the thing. I was thinking about that initially as well, but then it occurs to me, he has had a soft spot for people that have had, like a bit of a broken home himself. Like himself when he was there. When he was young, he wound up having to, like, vamoose because, like, oh my god, like, things are bad. I got claws popping under my skin and stuff, right?
Yeah. So you're thinking social worker?
Well, see, that's the thing. It's like he is a military veteran. So I can see him doing work there, helping rehabilitate, veterans. I can definitely see him having adopted at least a few people throughout his years. Like Jubilee, she's effectively an orphan after her parents got, dumped off the side of a cliff. I'm not sure about Kitty Pryde if she has parents, but she was like a sidekick with him for a while, sort of thing. He's got like another kid, he's like a foster parent too over in Tokyo. Like I figure if he didn't need to be running around like the globe being a hero and stopping his old buddies, if he didn't need to be Wolverine, he'd probably be settled down. He'd have like some sort of like foster home going on. But as for what he's doing, for himself, like for his job, I have a hard time picturing that because I've seen him do a lot of things. Yeah. But in this case, he'd have to find a job that would keep him fairly stationary. So, there goes like the trucker sort of stuff. There couldn't be too far out, so there goes the logger option, sort of thing. Like what would he do? Like I've seen him like work computers fairly well. Like turns out, if you go into the military and you spend some time there, they teach you how to use a computer for espionage.
Oh.
Yeah, if you bust into a high-tech facility, it kind of helps if you know how to, hack the system, at least, a little bit.
Okay.
So I don't know exactly where he'd wind up being. Likely he'd wind up in, like, Madripoor or someplace like that. But, he'd have, like, a foster home, and he'd be helping, like, rehabilitate veterans. Helping integrate them into society. So that's what I see him doing. Maybe that's enough to pay the bills. But I see him doing that. Because I get into his mind, I figure out who he is. And I think that's what, the thing that everyone should be out there doing to help, improve their creativity as well as memory in this case. So you take an average person and you write up a backstory for them. And say they're a famous person now. What are they famous for? You make the story up, make it, go there. It tells you a lot about you and what you think of people, in as much as, it helps boost your creativity. So, you learn a little bit more about yourself, right? And then by doing the reverse, looking at the people you see in the movies and whatnot, and you say like, what would they be if they could just be a regular person? That allows you to test how much you know about the character, how much you can see into like whether or not it's a very good cohesive character or whether it's very fractured personality, just brought for the purpose of the movie. Like how well does this work?
Yeah.
So, I think that's a good on both ends. I think it's a great, people watching as well as a creative, exercise.
There you go.
Yeah.
Something to try. If you don't, and, if this is something you already do, like our listeners already do, then they can try it out. Or they can let us know how they do it.
Yeah, just don't go up and start asking people, excuse me, if you were famous, what would you be famous for? Don't test yourself. You see how close you'd be.
Yeah, I think you could probably get away with a question like that.
With some people, some stuff, like the person, going up and talking to strangers on the bus, though. Little rude.
Yeah, it's a little rude, but I've seen people do that, like that style of thing, for a video or, TV, like they go up with a camera just to a stranger. And
well, I suppose you could just use your like podcast equipment here, Josh. You say, "Hi,
Yeah.
I'm doing like a nice little street interview sort of thing." If you were famous, what do you think you'd be famous for? And just have them like talk about it.
I guess it's a bit harder on the bus because then people are kind of trapped and like you don't want to. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is it's kind of like a nude beach. There's rules, even if they're not posted up somewhere. There's rules, man, and like God help the people that don't follow them.
Yeah, but I mean, people talk to other people on the bus, and it's not entirely. I mean, I guess it's a bit weird when somebody starts talking to you on the bus, but it's not entirely. I don't think it's forbidden.
No. But there's some stuff and there's some people that just don't want to be members of the conversation. In which case, if you wind up talking to them, they do feel very trapped on there, and especially depends on where you sit. I mean, if you wind up blocking them in by sitting next to them, and you've got like the aisle seat and they've got the window seat, then you've effectively trapped them.
Yeah.
In which case, forcing them to talk, that's a big no-no there. That's just some high-end rudeness going on.
Well, yeah, okay.
Make sure it's a good, open sort of stuff, and they seem, like they're okay with chatting with other people. So, take care, right?
Yeah, okay.
Right. So, what have you done this week, though, Josh, besides people watching?
Oh, and what fiction have I consumed?
Yes, your fictional appetites.
I played some D&D last Saturday.
Roll for Initiative?
Roll for Initiative, yeah. I was a player once again in this game, but I had a backup campaign ready to go, but we didn't actually end up using that. We just went with the one big table, but it was all good. Who was I playing this time? Oh, I played an elf named Joshua. As opposed to Josh.
So you're going for this, in-depth, like immersion sort of stuff.
Yeah. Elven rogue. Yeah.
Sneaky little bugger, aren't you?
Yeah. I don't remember much about that, but yeah. It was D&D. I remember having fun. So.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. I also played a little bit of Dwarf Fortress, not too much.
Still on the same fort.
I'm on the fort now. Yeah, the one where I've reached the 200. I'm at something like 218 dwarves. I feel like 3 screens of my unit list is children and babies.
Yeah,
maybe a few more.
That's what happens if you give dwarves spare time, man. That's their part-time hobby, is pretending to be rabbits.
Oh, okay. Well, that explains that. I don't mind it. I think it's going to be cool when they all grow up. But yeah, for now it's just waiting for... Oh, and I'm waiting for this, the one that got bit by a were-pangolin. I don't know what a pangolin is.
Oh, it's... Imagine if you were trying to describe a bear, but you were drunk. Like, really, really drunk. And then somebody had to sketch what you tried to describe. It's not too far off.
Is that a real animal, though?
Yeah, a pangolin is an actual animal.
Okay.
I believe it's Asiatic.
Okay, so like a spectacled bear, or even...
Think more towards drop bear. From like the Australian sort of stuff.
Okay.
In that it's a bear, but not like a big grizzly as we imagine them.
Okay, so yeah, I have a were-pangolin child in my building, and he was in the hospital recovering, and so I have a hospital. It's like a 9x9 room, and then I built he was in a bed, so I built a wall around his bed. And
very good.
A door and forbade the door. So now the hospital has this one room in it. With this guy who I tried letting him out, but he became focused.
Oh.
The child became focused, and then he just won't go anywhere. When he's in dwarf form. So I don't dare open the door for him when he's in pangolin
Fair
form.
enough.
So basically, I'm waiting for this child to grow up and see what happens to him when he becomes an adult.
It suddenly occurs to me, I wonder if he even will wind up growing up. As I know, there's no max age for were creatures, as I believe. They're immortal.
Okay.
And I don't know if a kid bit by a were creature would wind up becoming an adult. You may have a Peter Pan on your hands where he stays perpetually like a kid.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I don't really want to drown him, or crush him or anything, but I might have to.
Things might have to happen.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I think only time will be able to tell on this one. On the other hand, once you get your proper answer, I do heavily recommend that you make a note of that in the wiki. Because I don't know if I've seen anything about that on the Dwarf Fortress wiki, and you can contribute to the grand sum of knowledge.
Well, yeah, sure.
It'll be good for people to know.
Yeah.
So congratulations on your dwarven science, intentional or otherwise.
Yeah, and other than that, like the dwarves, I'm letting them kind of do whatever they do. I broke into the caverns, so they're grabbing all the troll corpses and other elk bird corpses, whatever else is down there.
Very nice. Yeah, sorry, I had to suddenly switch gears myself because I'm like, whoa, what if they animate halfway through? It's like, oh yeah, Josh probably isn't playing on a terrifying biome.
No. Here's something weird though. Like in the caverns, there's a floor, like a constructed floor down there.
Made out of what?
Rock salt, which is the material that is more like common in that area.
Very interesting. Might wind up being just a glitch. Might be something very dangerous. Won't spoil anything for you.
Oh, okay.
But like, what was this? Like the first layer of caverns?
Yeah, level like 93 or something.
Yeah. Shouldn't be anything like that until deep down. But hey, who knows? Keep us posted, man. Good information.
Yeah, I'll have to look up. Like, I can't remember now if my embark location was near a civilization. It might be. So I don't know if that would do anything.
Most civilizations don't put too much deep down, unless it was another dwarven civilization. I mean, goblins will have their dark pits, but
okay.
Keep us posted on what you find out about it. Be careful.
Okay, yeah, well.
So yeah, congratulations.
Let's see, so let me see. Yeah, basically, the dwarves are all busy, hauling stone in from other places. So.
It takes forever, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I had this idea, like, has anybody done this? Has anybody basically filled, well, I guess with an aquifer you kind of have this already, but you basically fill a layer with water, and then you can have, like, a plumbing in every room?
Yes, it is a bit of a more advanced technique, but there are people that have made sure to do that. To represent, like the waterworks, where you'd, like, have your toilet and all that sort of thing in there.
Yeah.
I won't lie, about half the people that do it seem to do it simply so that they can provide, like, a backdoor entrance for any, like, invading aquatic monsters, so that they aren't, like, perfectly sealed away. That's their one weakness, although at least they know it's a weakness, right?
Okay. I think my water level is pretty much sealed, because I let the water in from the river, and then I closed it off after, basically.
Okay.
So I don't think they can get in that way.
Okay. That might be something a little different. It is something I do have planned for myself in my current fort, if I can find enough water to make that happen.
Yeah. Well, you don't have, like, a river or,
I had a lake, but it was frozen, and it's been frozen solid for 5 years. And then I got rid of it, because it's just, like, it's not helping me out, and I'm slowly digging down anyways.
Okay.
I won't lie, I did take off the brackets on some aquifers, because the last thing I needed was, like a dwarf, like, digging into an aquifer, then having the water flush over them, and then freezing them solid. So, yeah. Like, there's enough troubles with my darn fortress. But, like, once I get everything put up, I might put the aquifer brackets back on, and then just utilize that as an infinite water source for me.
Yeah. Also, I had those vampires, 2 vampires.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Well, it looks like they're both chained up for now, so I think they're going to be okay. But every time they seem to get loose, they kill again.
And then why are you letting them get loose?
Well, I let them loose. I turned off all their jobs and stuff, and I assigned them quarters, and dining room and office, because I don't know if they need to sleep now that they're vampires.
I don't think they ever need to sleep. That's one of the ways of detecting a vampire in a fortress, is finding out who has never claimed a bed.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So the bed trick didn't work out too well. Although they did, one of them, I captured him for a while I captured her for a while because she was putting things in a chest that I had assigned to her. So that was
all her possessions.
Yeah.
And I won't lie, like, an old vampire will have a lot of possessions. Off screen, they'll tend to make, like, jewelry out of the corpses of their victims. So if you find somebody, like, just absolutely loaded down with, like, hundreds of jewelry items,
Oh, really?
Might be a bit of a hint.
Okay. Well, hopefully I'll figure out a way to lure them back, because what I was
Well, you
thinking.
can always work with burrows. Is the thing.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, burrows would do it.
Just assign them like a suite. This is like the vampire suite. Each of you has a bed. Each of you has like a nice little spot to do some work in. Here's a dining room for you. Not that you guys are going to need it, and a nice little common area to be friends in, and then only one way in, one way out, and then you seal that way off.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking, but also, like, I don't know if I can do a monster wing, too, and have the were creature in there, too.
They will fight each other eventually.
Okay, yeah.
You could have them, like, separate, like, sub-wings going on.
Yeah, like on the left and right, yeah.
Hall of Horrors. Ooh.
Now, also, like, this is interesting. So now I have werewolves and vampires, basically, or were-pangolins, which pretty much werewolf.
Yeah, well, yeah.
What other creatures can I get that are that can sort of function? I can get ghosts, but they don't really do anything. Right?
No, there is one really obscure option. If your fortress isn't doing well, and a dwarf enters a foul mood, they'll grab the nearest dwarf and utilize their body as the basis for a horrific, artifact. Mm-hmm. It kills the dwarf. And apparently, if the closest dwarf to them is a ghost, it is the only instance where you can interact with a ghost. Like, they will grab this ghost, slam it down in the workshop, slaughter it, and use it, and you make it like a dwarf ghost skin, like leather armor.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's pretty rockin' badass. But that is some very obscure situations and may have been fixed.
Okay, yeah.
So, yeah. But no, they aren't... Well, I mean... A ghost is pretty good as a defense system. If you get a vengeful ghost, hanging out around the outer end of the fortress, like where the invaders will wind up being, they can spook invaders away.
Oh, okay.
Scare them to death and that sort of thing.
I could probably haul a body out there too, and because often a ghost will hang around its body, right?
Yes.
So basically, you can put heads on spikes and.
Close enough, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, might not work 100%. If they died in a different location, they could haunt either area.
Okay, yeah. Well, I could just put some dangerous terrain out front, or collapse some floors and just.
Well, that's the thing is you could always build a nice little area like a retracting drawbridge and force a dwarf to spend some time on there, and then just remove the drawbridge and just let them fall underneath. If they survive it, put the drawbridge back and let them starve to death. It's pretty barbaric, but it's technically effective.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do not recommend.
Yeah. Well, I have been still enjoying the game, so it's.
Oh, there you go.
And one other thing, I went to games, the Interactivity Games Cafe, and played Pandemic, among some other games.
Describe
Pandemic
it for the people out there. For those who haven't heard.
Well, it is a board game. It's got sort of a world map on it, and little cubes get placed every time a pandemic occurs, and then they multiply, and then if they reach a certain threshold, they spread to neighboring countries.
Kind of like cities. A weird bioweapons variant on Risk.
Yeah, and it's a cooperative game. The players take on the roles of researchers trying to cure the pandemic or try to manage it. And
which is a nice variant, because I didn't want you to describe it, because there is another version of I don't think it's called Pandemic, but it's like that, where you take on the role of the disease and you have to try and infect the entire world.
Oh yeah, I think I've heard of that one.
Yeah, with the tough nut to crack being Madagascar, because once they shut down, it's an island. There's no way it's going to cross any borders. You cannot infect a few areas like that once they close down. So you got to try and spread yourself all the way out before getting nasty, and then pump yourself up for lethality. And it's too late. I'm already here.
Yeah. So so I had fun with that game.
Did you win? Did you save the world?
Let me see. We definitely lost once.
Ooh.
I'm trying to think if we lost the other time too.
There goes one reality.
I think we won one time. Yeah, we did. We managed to win one time.
So right now you're in a quantum state of 50-50 odds whether or not you succeed or fail.
I guess so. Yeah, I guess we have to play the game a little bit more.
Dang it.
And we also played Forbidden Island, which is another board game. Forbidden. It's got tiles. It's got square tiles and cards.
Ooh, sounds like a good game already.
I think you'd like it. Have you played that?
I don't believe I've had a chance to play it. Heard of it, haven't got a chance to play it, or really read how the rules go. But you enjoyed it?
That one was fun. Yeah, that was a bit more fun than Pandemic. Also cooperative. I've mentioned before, I think I like cooperative games.
I do find a certain extra sense of good appeal when everyone's working against something else as opposed to each other, because that can breed some resentment.
Yeah, and I know people have mentioned the problem with cooperative games being that if somebody's really good at it, they can sort of manage the whole thing, and it just becomes that person playing the game and telling everyone else what to do.
Well, so that's the thing, though. It's like compared to the alternative. Like I'm looking at you, Adam, my brother out there. When he plays competitively, he plays very competitively, and sometimes it's hard for anybody to achieve a win status when he's making sure that no one else gets ahead.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I've played, games, with friends and him where I wind up winning simply because he makes so many enemies, no one wants to let him win, and then I just kind of sneak in by default.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's something to definitely be said for cooperative games, even if it means that sometimes a person takes a bit more of a prominent lead.
Yeah, actually, we played a round of zombies, and for some reason I remember it being more cooperative, but...
Well, that's the thing is, I do recall us trying to play at least once where we're all like backstabbing each other and nobody was getting anywhere. The zombies were piling up, and we just basically said, you know what? We're all working in this together. We're all following one route here. And so, like, I guess in that case, like working cooperatively, I had to end up taking a lead.
Yeah.
But we were doing so much better. Everyone was keeping up like 4 or 5 hearts, 4 or 5 bullets, and we're clearing out areas for each other whenever someone got low.
Okay, yeah.
And yeah, as long as we tweaked the end rule, if we all have to get to the helipad on the same consecutive turn, then we all get to leave at once. Sort of thing. And that was a lot easier. It is a completely different game that way.
Okay, yeah, because we weren't like screwing each other over like anything like that,
but
we weren't really working as a team together.
Well, I mean, this is like Hero Quest or most versions of D&D. Like, if you're just trying to be 4 individuals playing a game, it is a lot harder than like one group of 4 working as one.
Okay, yeah, so we'll have to try zombies again this time. Like, we'll explicitly make a rules change to be that we're working together, and because there was a rule about if you kill 25 zombies, like that player wins. So that was how we ended the game.
See, it seems like a really low number for me, because like when I've played the zombies game, I've seen like there's a lot of zombies tokens on there. Getting 25 kills. And playing at least even moderately conservatively is still a very easy way to go there. So it doesn't seem like it's a real victory.
It seems likelier you'll go through 25 zombies almost for sure before you get to the helipad, depending on where you put it. Oh, very
much so, especially like if you're playing somewhat cooperatively. Because like I suppose if you're trying to screw each other over, you'll wind up dying before you can get to your 25th kill.
Yeah.
So I suppose like 25 zombies in an antagonistic game, just ignore that rule for a cooperative game.
I guess the other thing is that in a cooperative game, you would sort of agree to leave a space near the like these are for the listeners who don't know. There's tiles that are city blocks, and you place one city block at a time on the game.
The city opens up as you continue to play.
Yeah. So the last tile you put out is the helipad. And so if you are playing cooperatively, you would leave a space near your starting space, almost next to it. I don't know if next to it is a legal space, but basically you put your helipad right there so it's easy for everyone to get off.
Helipad next to the open space I think technically works, although it makes for bad storytelling. We got to get to the helipad. It was right next to us all along.
We were like running in circles, and it was right behind us. But no, that represents like, I don't know, like a building or a facade fell down and there it was or something like that.
It's like, hey, wait. Isn't there a helipad on the top of that building? Oh yeah, it's just hey, the power works. There's an elevator and everything. There we go.
I guess, but yeah, tiles being revealed could be something like it was blocked off before, or or there was no power or something.
Or you're
like
just all visitors to the city and you took a left when you should have taken a right.
You could be unfamiliar or.
Like I won't lie, if the zombie apocalypse happens in New York, I am largely hosed.
Yeah.
Like aside from general north-south, maybe not even then. Like, you know, like I'm completely out of it.
And the other interesting thing about New York, which is kind of fun to think about, is that a lot of people are hosed because if the subways aren't working, that's the only, like, they know their way to work, but that's all they know. Like, they just know to take the subway. They can't even walk, you know, basically the same route as the subway because it's.
But they should be able to figure out where the boroughs are next to each other.
Some people will be able
to. If it wasn't
yeah.
for Google Maps and going around, you know, I think it was, around the old firehouse for Ghostbusters, you know, part of I think it was Manhattan. Even that, I was like, I have no clue what the heck, where anything is, what it's like.
Yeah.
I am completely out of it.
Well, I mean, I'm good at reading maps, like, you know, road maps, city maps, and stuff like that. So I'd probably be okay. But
once you get that map, man, that map is going to be your lifeline.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you don't know where you are yet, then of course you don't have that knowledge, so you're screwed.
Yeah. So, you know, there's I guess that's one explanation for it. You know, like you had to go all the way around before you found the map.
But I think let me see, what would that skill be though in D&D? I think it was no direction, like KNOW direction in one edition.
Whereas I suppose it's just a wisdom check now in 5th.
Yeah, but I think if I had a D&D stat, I think that stat would be relatively high for me because I have a pretty good sense of.
You got a few ranks
of spatial, like when it comes to maps. You
got advantage on the check.
Yeah.
Okay, that's your extra little bit for your background stuff, city boy.
There you go. Yeah.
So it's not bad. What else did you do? Anything?
Oh,
else?
Did I cover pandemic? Yeah, that's pretty much all I did. I think.
As for me this week, we saw a couple movies. I'm going to get Zoe on out here. She's going to help give our review of Cinderella. And this is where we're going to cut it in. So, Zoe, what did you think about Cinderella?
It was a very good movie.
So what did you think about all the mice?
They was pretty silly because he got that necklace.
Yeah, that's right. There was that necklace scene. And what do you think about the song with the fairy godmother?
And I love the fairy godmother.
Yeah, she was a good lady. And what do you think about Cinderella? Was she a good lady, or was she mean, or was she vain? What was she like?
Beautiful like princess.
Oh, and what about her stepsisters? And the stepmom? Were they good guys or bad guys?
I think the mom was a bad guy because her eyes looked like very mad.
She was always an angry person, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, very interesting, very interesting. And do you think this was like a well-recommended movie?
Yeah.
Like, what do you think about the music? Was it good music? Everyone should be singing their music?
Yep.
Was it classic music? You're going to catch yourself humming it from time to time?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. So, if I was to tell you that I didn't like the stepsisters, but I did respect the stepmom, because although being evil, she was also very smart, and it's okay to like a smart person. Would you be okay with that? Or do you say that, no, I shouldn't like the stepmom because she was evil too?
No.
No?
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 No.
Oh. So I can't like an evil person even if they're a smart, shrewd, evil person?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see. Do you think the mice were very realistic, the way they helped Cinderella out and talked, or was that just pure silliness?
Pure silliness.
And did that make the movie better with their pure silliness?
Yep-be-doo.
So, what do you think was the best part of the movie?
The fairy godmother.
Oh, where she's doing her bippity-boppity-boo song?
Yeah.
That was a pretty good bit. You know what? I'm going to have to say, I disagree with you, though. I'm going to say the best part of the movie was when the glass slipper broke, and then the guy was all upset, like the Archduke was all upset, oh no, and Cinderella couldn't prove that her foot fit the slipper, except that she says, oh, that's okay, I have the other one right here, and then she pulls out the matching pair for it. I think that was pretty boss, because that was just like a complete,
Yeah, and the step godmother does open her mouth.
Yeah, she was so surprised. Her mouth literally went slack-jawed. Ball.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And I think that was the best part of the movie, simply because like Cinderella proved that she was at least as smart as the wicked stepmom. So in the end, how many thumbs up do you give this movie? 1 thumb up, 2 thumbs up?
4 thumbs up.
4 thumbs up. I better lend my 2 thumbs to yours, okay? There we go. So there you have it. It's a 4 thumbs up movie, according to Zoe.
And I really like it. Yuppity doo da, yuppity a.
That's not in this one. That's in another one. You little silly. All right, say goodbye to everyone.
Bye. 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 Bye.
Thank you, Zoe. Thank you. I have to say, it was a good movie, song-wise, but I did not think it to be as strong a movie as last week's Snow White.
Okay. What's the year? And Snow White came in the 30s, and Cinderella in the.
No, I think they're both in color naturally, so I imagine it wouldn't be that far old. It doesn't say on the back about how old it is. But I think they're both like 50s or 60s for their age.
Okay.
Because it's, 2012 Blu-ray release, and this is the Diamond Edition, so it makes it, 50 years old? So yeah, I placed that 62 or something like that.
Okay.
It's sufficiently aged.
Yeah.
I did get the extra little point, like this is probably going to be worth 1 pip on like a Trivial Pursuit. Apparently Cinderella's surname is Tremaine.
Okay.
They do make a mention of like House Tremaine.
Huh.
So it's like, hey, yeah, I'm like, keep that information under your hat if you ever need to. Let's see how it just wasn't as strong. Like the prince had like no personality. I think he may have given maybe 3 lines the entire movie.
Okay, so you're more happy with Prince Charming from Snow White.
At least he did something. I mean, like for like the prince, here in Cinderella, he's coming back after a stint away, sort of thing, and his dad, the king, wants to get him married. So while he's back, we'll hold a ball for him, and while they're holding a ball, we'll have every eligible lady come in and introduce herself to him. And, there's a bit where he keeps getting introduced, and there's a bit where he's stifling back yawns. He's really, just kind of tired of this whole thing. And then he sees her out there, and they go out and they have a fun time together. But it's really not a lot to his personality, aside from the fact that he seems to somehow flout his royal ties in favor of doing what he wants.
Okay, yeah.
But, that's kind of a stretch. Otherwise, he's almost like a non-character. He's like a third-string tier. He has less screen time and less personality than the mice in this movie.
Right, yeah.
So, the whole fact is that she didn't even realize he was the prince until, towards the end. Like, she thought she just went to the ball and had a great time with the person, and she says, oh, he was as charming as the prince ever possibly could have been. So she thought she was just, having a good time with a nice guy. So, props on, not going for him because he's the prince. But it really does seem like she's marrying him just to get out of the abusive relationship she's in with her stepfamily.
Okay.
Which, it does sound like a very good ending, because, hey, you're out of an abusive, a family,
yeah, but that's not the way to solve that problem.
Yeah, don't marry your way out, just try and find a way out, but I suppose, only so many rights, for that.
If you're gonna get married, you might as well get married, but, yeah. So I have nothing against that, although, I guess, yeah, there's... don't get me wrong, she shows a lot of good personality traits, she's very forgiving. Like, the cat that's owned by the stepmom is chasing after the mice, which are her friends, and they can speak, so I guess, you should definitely treat them nice. But she says, to the dog, as he's having a bad, I guess it's a good dream, because he's pretending in his dream he's chasing the cat and catching it. She admonished him, don't draw a dream like that. Everyone, is good. She's very forgiving, even if she can't figure out a good positive aspect to the cat, whose name is Lucifer. How did they get that by the censors back then? Naming anybody Lucifer. Yeah.
But yeah, she just try and find the best in everybody, including the people that are antagonistic to her. So it's amazingly forgiving, almost to the point of it being like a character flaw.
Although Lucifer is Satan's name when he was a good guy, because he changed his name to Satan when he turned evil.
There's still not good connections going on there. The mice have a lot of screen time, especially compared to Cinderella. There's some very good like songs that show just her natural beauty sort of thing. It's not as if she has to work up and make up this beauty. She's got a beautiful singing voice and all that. Where the heck was the good, like a fairy godmother up to the point where she appears? Like, she's been in a very bad situation for a very long time, this poor Cinderella girl. And just now she shows up? And I mean, I guess she does leave the glass slippers behind after the transformation as a nice little parting gift, but I mean, this is... Like, admittedly, the Tremaine family was apparently, like, kind of like on the down and outs. Their fortunes have dwindled, which is why they have to get Cinderella to be like the stepmaid, like the maid, and doing all the other stuff there for the stepsisters and stepmom. But apparently, the fairy stepmom, like a fairy godmother, was kind of hard up too, because she can only just make one appearance, only right now, and hopefully you get a chance to marry your way out of the situation. Right. She ain't coming back.
Yeah. That's fairies for you.
Yeah, I suppose. I'll give partial marks on it being a fairy and thus capricious, but still, like, dude, you probably could have showed up and done a lot better with a little bit, less effort and work and magic, or earlier on.
Yeah. Although, if the country had a decent, social safety net, maybe none of this would have happened. Yeah.
There's a few issues with the whole thing. I will admit this is
criticizing the medieval society. Where is it? It's China, right? That the initial story comes from.
I think initially, but this one seems to be 1800s.
Okay.
It seems almost modern. But I definitely find it to be one of the weaker classic Disney films I've been watching recently. Yeah. I don't know how this is going to waver with my watching of Peter Pan. There's that one horribly racist scene going on there with the First Nations people.
Okay.
But right now, this is the weakest of the links, although it does have good music. So, and some of the music was really nicely done. There's a whole bit where like she's singing, like a song as she's cleaning the floor, and the bubbles are coming up, and then you see her reflection in the bubbles as the bubbles are all changing color, and that was quite nice. Very, very artsy and inventive without being too overdone.
Is that Whistle While You Work?
No,
that was Snow White, wasn't it?
No, she's just singing Nightingale, sort of thing. Oh, sweet Nightingale. But she sings it a lot better because, I mean, like her stepsister is trying to sing, oh, sweet Nightingale.
Oh, yeah.
And just trying to show the beauty of Cinderella is natural and flows, whereas the ugliness of the stepsisters is complete. It's not just that they look plain, they act plain, they have nothing to warrant, to give to society as a whole. They only take. That said, I did respect as I said with Zoe, the stepmom. She was evil, but she was really smart about it. She had her mind about the whole thing, and until she got played up at the last moment with the second glass slipper reveal, she was really on top of things. So, in my head canon, I imagine that Cinderella, after she wound up becoming princess, would have had her stepmom, as some sort of like console or some sort of like inner circle of like people to bounce ideas off of, stuff like that. Because I mean, like, admittedly, like, they could have done a lot worse with Cinderella given like the rules that were going on there. They could have literally sold her off. She was beautiful and blonde, and that's going to fetch you a high price on the human slave market. Always has, always will. So
even when we're all robots.
Oh yeah, because that way it'll be like a pet.
Okay.
So yeah, but they could have done a lot worse by her, sort of thing. And admittedly, intelligence is hard to find in any era. So like if you can find a smart person, keep them with you, even if they wind up being antagonistic to you originally.
So in the Disney version, obviously they don't kill the stepmother or stepsister.
No, in the traditional
have
story,
their feet cut off.
Well, they cut their own feet off in order to fit into the slipper.
Okay.
And then later on, their eyes are pecked out by birds, which, depending on like how you're going to interpret Cinderella, because like she does like sing to the birds and have them do stuff and help her out, not to the same level as like Snow White, but they still help. I mean, the mice help like revamp her dress for her while she's busy doing chores. So like it might be interpreted as though she says, "Okay, now they're weak. Now go, my pretties, and kill them. Peck out their eyes." Blah! But like I just don't see that being in her personality style. So.
All right.
So I guess that's just, like the medieval sort of, like comeuppance that happen in these sorts of fairy tales.
Just sort of hold whatever your next thought was. The Rescuers, do you remember that movie?
I do indeed.
When did that come out?
It was like the 80s.
Okay.
End of the 80s,
Later.
I believe.
Because you've mentioned that the people with the personality are not the people, but it's more the animals and stuff.
And I think eventually Disney came around to the point of like, why are we, taking these, fairy tales and adding a bunch of animals with personality into them when we could just tell a story about a bunch of animals with personality?
I guess the Aristocrats or the Aristocats, and 101 Dalmatians is about the Dalmatians. So I guess they got
Although there really is a story
idea.
about Cruella de Vil and the family and all that stuff about like how are they going to make ends meet because he's even got to sing the song about it.
Yeah, but we see a lot more of the dogs on screen, I think, than...
And then as of like this last year we had Zootopia where it's just like, well, why don't we just have the animals be people and just do the whole darn thing like that? And that is probably the best way to go about it. Because if you really have to shoehorn a bunch of talking mice into Cinderella, how strong is your Cinderella story about this?
Yeah, just do the story. Just do the animal cartoon. Yeah.
And I'll say this. I know that Cinderella is a classic story, but if you do have to shoehorn it in, like maybe, like with the talking mice and all this stuff here, maybe you could like kind of like spruce up the original story a little bit, make it a bit more, like with character and stuff going on there.
Yeah.
So as much as I appreciate the classics, and I'm watching them with Zoe, and she's digging them well enough, maybe because she's not old enough to like understand, like, dude, you could have done better. But I would not object in the slightest if they were to redo Cinderella as like an animated Disney feature film, and just say it was good for its time, but like times have changed, and we can do a lot better than we did then, and make a truly spectacular 2-hour thing. This one, by the way, was only about 85 minutes, I believe. No, 75 minutes.
Yeah.
Not a long movie.
Well, okay, yeah. And you'd rather it had been longer?
Well, these old ones are kind of easier for kids with shorter attention spans because, like it's only 75 minutes. It's barely more than an hour, man. So that does help. But that said, I mean, like, if like you can't tell more of a story and you have to cut it short to 75 minutes, then maybe you should be doing more with the characters. Maybe you should be doing a little bit more work to develop them. So, like I if the Disney wants to redo this stuff, they are not going to hear complaint one out of me.
Okay. Well, did they? How much has Cinderella been touched? I think they did.
Ella Enchanted and all the stuff. They've been revisiting it an awful lot. Some live there was a live action Cinderella that came out the other year.
Yeah.
But it's not the Disney classic animated features that Disney really has in the forefront of its house, right?
Yeah.
So, like if, like I said, they could really do it. They could really put it back up there and, like maybe this could be the start of a thing where like every 50, 60 years they wind up redoing the stuff to retell the story a little bit better. Like, honestly, I know a lot of people are a little tired about like doing reboots and doing like remakes. But come on, man! Like this is like the diamond, edition sort of thing. If you can tell a story once every 50 years, I think we're allowed to redo it properly, in the same sort of format. Don't need to stretch it out too much. You can just make this whole thing work.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'd be. I mean, if I was the president of Disney, I might do that. I would probably authorize like 1 or 2 just to see how it went. I like the idea of new projects.
I think Disney and the Snow White could really work well that way.
Yeah.
Although I won't lie, like right now, Captain Hook is a pretty decent, a topic commodity for the Jake and the Neverland Pirates. So maybe redoing Peter Pan, getting rid of that crazy one scene out of there, and replacing the whole thing a little bit better, a little bit more culturally sensitive, something that doesn't seem like, oh my god, embarrassingly, is like horrific. They could really make something great out of it. And to be fair, like I think right now the biggest product out of the whole Peter Pan thing is the Tinkerbell, with all her Tinkerbell movies going on these days. So they could definitely put her back in and give her like a extra like a solid role in there. Because I remember watching like the previews before Cinderella even started. I'm thinking to myself, you know what? The previews I'm seeing for these Tinkerbell things, they look really solid. These look like they're actually genuinely entertaining movies. We're gonna have to wind up renting these when we get the extra time. But that said, we've got a lot more stuff to fill my daughter's head up with first to make sure she gets all the references she sees when she goes to Disneyland.
Great.
So. Tinkerbell's solo movies will have to wait until the new year. Other than that, I rewatched League of Extraordinary Gentlemen this week.
Okay.
CGI has aged a little bit, but it's still not too bad. My daughter, like, I rented it just for me. It's like, oh boy, this will be something just for me to watch, you know. And my daughter stuck around and she watched the whole thing and she paid attention. It was good enough to keep her attention, even if she wasn't certain as to who all these people were. It's like, ooh, he's like the biggest Hulk I ever seen that wasn't green. It's like, fair enough, yeah, it worked with that. She did appreciate the Invisible Man the most out of the entire group of people. Because at one point I paused as I was getting some water for us and asked, you know, who's your favorite character, you know, and she's, oh, I like the Invisible Man because he's got super power, he's invisible. It was very interesting to see on the whole thing there.
Yeah.
I think I found a loophole that could have broken, the kill the bad guys thing. So you got Dorian Grey. And in this one here, Dorian Grey, if he ever sees his portrait, his curse or his blessing, his condition reverts.
Okay.
For those who don't know, Dorian Grey has a painting. Anything that happens to him and does not stay happening to him, it happens to the portrait of himself, and thus he stays perfectly immortal. For, you know,
like if he gets shot or
if
gets
he gets shot,
disease.
If he winds up getting shot, then the bullet wounds disappear from him and pop up on his portrait. If he winds up aging, no, his portrait it does instead. So he stays as young as he was when the portrait was painted. And I guess the downside is he has to keep the same outfit for all the time, but it's not a bad outfit, honestly.
Okay.
It's stylish. It works. You can make it, make it work in a lot of areas, and apparently it stays clean and repairs itself. So it's not like he's dressed in rags. But yeah, like I said, at least within this incarnation, if he sees his portrait, he suffers everything that's happened to him since the portrait happened, and the portrait kind of goes back to fresh square one, right?
Okay.
They could have given him some of the Invisible Man's invisibility potion to make him invisible. Because that would not have stayed on him, it would have happened to the portrait. And thus, with now an invisible him in the portrait, there's no way he could have seen himself in the portrait, and thus his undoing of actually seeing himself in the picture, sort of thing, could not have occurred. He could not have been killed. So yeah, I think I broke it. But
you might have. The magic of the portrait might actually specifically require a visual. It would be like destroying the portrait if you made him invisible, which I don't know what destroying the portrait, what effect that would have.
I do believe, according to the original story, it destroys him.
Okay,
yes.
Yeah. So he might, that might actually destroy the portrait, which would destroy.
That said, I would have liked to have seen what would have happened if he had survived, say, another century and a half longer, and seen what he could have done with a good high quality, a printer. Where he just scanned and made multiple copies. See what happens there.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Oh, well, in the end it doesn't work. But, just something that occurred to me as I'm watching it. I don't fault Dorian Grey for not thinking about it, because it didn't occur to me the first time I watched it. It only occurred now, after so many years.
Yeah, and I wonder, it may not have occurred to anyone out there. I don't know.
It's just it would have been a smart way of hedging his bets, right?
Yeah.
Which does seg into a bit of our topic for this week, is being clever. Because, it's just one thing to have your abilities, but if you're clever, you can make the most out of them.
Yeah.
And, this is not an unpopular trope to be using in stories. You look at Aladdin, sort of thing, at least the Disney Aladdin. How does he save the day? Spoiler alert. No, forget that. How does he wind up, saving the day?
I forget.
He tricks Jafar into wishing himself as an almighty genie.
Oh, yes, yeah, the tricking of the wish, yes.
Which then means he has to get forced into a lamp, which the genie then throws into the Cave of Wonders. I guess, spoiler alert, he comes back in the sequel, so it never really took. But still a very good way of stopping, a very powerful sorcerer.
Yeah.
Woo, yay. But that's the thing. Is Aladdin wasn't just smart. He had other things going for him. He was agile. He was very handsome, and I imagine, given the state of his living conditions, he was a pretty tough guy. Not big. Oh, I've got shoes. Look at the size of my pecs. But he's a pretty sturdy guy. He was able to outrun a lot of the the police.
Yeah.
So he's got a runner's body sort of thing to him. But because he was smart, he was able to make the best use out of everything. Charm when he needs to, and the other times, the agility to get the heck out of the dodge.
Yeah, I guess the thing that happens sometimes with cleverness is you sort of reach that point of coming up with a clever idea when you're sort of out of other options. Like if you're somebody
it's an ace up your sleeve, so to speak.
Yeah, if you're somebody who generally has resources available to you to conquer problems, like if you're strong or if you have the law on your side or whatever, you normally turn to those solutions, so you don't actually have to think outside the box or whatever you want to call it. So that cleverness is sort of developed as a result of his upbringing because he had to survive.
It is the best weapon of the underdog, so to speak.
Yeah.
Well, there's the classic Uncle Remus story of Brer Rabbit, who gets caught by the fox and the bear, and he's like, "Oh no, please, whatever you wind up doing, you can torture me, you can eat me, you can skin me, just whatever you do, don't throw me in the briar bushes." And they're like, "Oh, you don't like that, eh?" And he's like, "Oh no, it's the worst thing. The bristles really puncture my skin, and it hurts so much." And so they throw him in, not knowing that briar bushes down towards the ground are actually fairly clear. They just grow up before they grow out. And so a rabbit can easily scurry away without getting scratched. And when they realize that, they go try and chasing them, and then they get stuck in there because there's not enough space for a fox, and especially no room for a bear. And so they wind up getting tricked by the cleverness of Brer Rabbit.
Well, now here's where I want to talk about cleverness, because how clever is it if you're just out like that? They seem particularly dumb if they're falling for that trick, or dumb or naive or whatever. Like,
admittedly, a little bit, yeah.
So when you do cleverness in stories, often you demonstrate that one character is more clever than another simply because they outwit them, or they and you might lower the intelligence level of another character just to amplify the first one, for example.
To some degree, yes. But it does say something about a person when they're able to think on their feet that way. It indicates more than just, oh, yes, I went to university for 7 years. Thus, I must be an incredibly smart person. It doesn't mean you can think fast, especially not on your feet. Indiana Jones is a very clever man because, all the stuff that happens to him, he has to think up and get the solutions to as he's running away, mostly from Nazis.
Yeah, okay.
So despite the fact that, he has technically the law on his side for a lot of these situations, he's a strong guy and he's got a gun and a whip sort of thing. Like cleverness, is the ability to think on his feet to find that solution when everything is going on all at once.
Yeah. Well, I feel like another aspect of cleverness is just being open to alternative solutions. Again, thinking outside the box, or thinking of the fact that you are allowed to lie or bluff, or the fact that you can get away with lying or bluffing. Because this is a calculation you have to make if you're trying to lie your way out of a situation, lie to a guard or something. Well, I'm supposed to be here. You're telling that you're taking a chance that the guard is not going to believe you, or is going to say, well, I know you're lying.
In this case, I believe for Indiana Jones, the infamous line is, "No ticket," where he throws the guy out the window.
Oh, yeah.
And thus everyone assumes that, oh, God, this is the conductor, let's get our tickets here right now and ready, because everyone, get the tickets out and ready. So in which case, it's not so much that he said he was, but he made everyone believe he was, and explain why he did this horrific action of throwing somebody out of the side of the window. Was it a window or was it a door? Oh, we'll have to watch them all over again.
Yeah, I have to watch it again.
Oh, darn.
Yeah.
But in which case, that I guess is another hallmark of cleverness, is only revealing part of something. I guess it's a kind of a Carney Barker sort of, style, where you got to sell, a little bit and get everyone to go along with the rest.
Yeah, and some of it is just being bold and hoping for the best,
refuge and audacity.
Act like you belong, and maybe somebody will let you in, or something like that. Or
I've seen that in a few instances. Yeah, that I guess I'll call it a lesser form of clever.
Yeah, but it's part of the bag of tricks that a sort of a thievish or roguish character would have. Is that maybe a more upstanding character wouldn't? Is that they have that sort of their willingness to bend the truth, or willingness to come up with a lie on the fly because they've done it before and they like, oh, okay, this situation I can lie and get out of this. Whereas like maybe a character might not even think to lie to get out of a thing. Like I just tell the truth.
Is it really a lie if you tell only half of the truth?
Well, that wasn't. I mean, if you.
So I mean, like, where does the telling the lie and where does the not telling all the truth, wind up, taking an intersection there?
If you're trying to help yourself sleep better at night, I'm gonna say I don't have anything per se about, like, I am personally not that moral. Like I generally believe in telling the truth, but I think every once in a while people need to lie. And
it is the social lubricant, as they say.
Yeah, little white lies.
Yeah.
So you're not going to hear any complaints from me, unless you're like, well, no, I don't even mind being lied to personally. I suppose I'd mind if it hurts me in some way, like deprives me of something very important to me. But even a little,
you'll be out definitely at this hour, and then you wind up staying like an extra 45 minutes, an extra hour at work.
Yeah, that happens, and I don't mind that. And
well, that's the thing. It's the lie that kind of hurts you because then you're out the time, but then you are also up the money because you're getting paid.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and so I don't mind too much being lied to in that way either. So that doesn't. I know in some, in fiction, there are characters who take great offense if somebody, you lied to me, I trusted you.
Yeah, I never really understood that either.
I mean, if it's very important, sure. Yeah, if it's a very important thing, I guess.
You told me you weren't married.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty bad one there, isn't it?
Although in some situations, I would even let that slip, but.
I suppose. I mean, you can't be, claim to be an adulterer if you didn't know you were the other person, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in which case, it's okay to be lied to in that regard because you're not going to wind up being the bad person in the situation. You're just another unwilling patsy.
Well, yeah, and you can say, well, I mean, we had fun together. I guess I found out that you are involved with somebody else, so you can go be with them. That's fine. I'll find someone else or whatever.
Okay. So then, like, you're saying, though, that cleverness is kind of like the final trick a person should be having. As opposed to trying to use it first and foremost.
Well,
or is that the mark between a good guy and a bad guy? Is that a bad guy will utilize this trickiness, this covert stealth style of lies to weave their web, as opposed to making sure it's a last resort. Otherwise, they're generally honest.
I think, I don't know about bad guy, but I want to say villain or sort of like nefarious person, because sometimes you can have a bad guy who's maybe a little more honest, but still, against you. But yes, I think like a villainous character. I was just watching The Hobbit, the third movie, where they have what's the Alfred, the servant to the master? Do you remember?
Yes.
The deputy or whatever he is.
The pre-Wormtongue, yes.
Yeah, and he's almost cartoonishly evil. Well, not he's a minor evil. You know what I mean?
He's cartoonishly so, yes.
He's like trying to take blankets from the old lady and
humorously so. But here's the thing: I respect him because in the end of it, I do believe he manages to escape with his life and a decent amount of money.
Yeah.
So he doesn't escape with his dignity. He does not escape with any honor, but he does survive at the end of the film, and that does kind of put him at least one rung higher than a lot of people who died in that final fight, right?
Yeah, so he's slightly clever, yeah. Although there are moments where he certainly doesn't look that sharp.
Well, there's a reason why he's not the master of Lake Town.
Yeah, true.
So, you got to make do with the talents you got, and if you're not good enough to be the master, the next thing you are is just the underling for him.
But I just think it just sort of seems to happen naturally that people tend to turn to straightforward solutions first, and they get to clever solutions only when they're sort of forced to, generally.
Or lazy. I could do it the proper way, but if I just give me like a piece of gum and some silly string here, and I can there we go, that works.
Is anybody really clever just to be? I mean, I guess some people enjoy games and puzzles and stuff, but is anybody just clever for the sake of being clever?
No, there's always programmers, right? If you can get it done in less lines of code, then congratulations on your cleverness.
Yeah, I guess the guys who not break in, but they they count cards at poker. That's, cleverness for the sake of we want to accomplish this kind of deal.
I don't know if that's clever so much as just mathematically smart.
Okay.
Clever would be realizing, like a nervous tick or something that like the other person has, so that way James Bond can tell when he's going to win this hand.
Oh, okay. So that's an interesting distinction. So that's more like cleverness versus intelligence, or cleverness versus planning.
Counting cards, I think, would fall underneath the realm of intelligence, because you got to keep track of what cards have been used, how often the decks have been done, and what the ratios are like, sort of thing. And there might be some like equations that help you out to figure out whether or not you'd be better off to hit or stand, sort of thing, in a game of poker. Mm-hmm. But it is fairly mathematical. I mean, like with a calculator brain, you should be able to make it work. Mm-hmm. But not everybody's able to notice those little tells. Like, it takes a very savvy person to notice the tells, which is why I kind of wish I had had a chance to play more poker with, like my poker playing friend and roommate back in the day, as I would have loved to have figured out what my tells were after I had lost to him so many times.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I believe so much in tells.
People have them. I mean, they're
they'll have a little bit of it, but I think a bigger tell is often just what you're betting and just your betting pattern.
There's that. Yeah, that's one aspect of it. Some people try to overcompensate. They figure it's like, okay, I've got a really good hand. Play it, like I've got like average or mediocre at best, and so they'll wind up being just bad actors.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just the pattern of you call big or you call or bet in your first hand, but then you're a little bit hesitant after that, and it's like, oh, well, what happened, or what did he see on the cards that changed, or something like that. So there's it limits the number of possibilities that player could have had that they would be betting that style.
Or it could just be, took a lesson from Sun Tzu's Art of War. Appear weak when you are strong. So it's like, I'll bet big, and then, oh no, it'll look like I've overstepped myself, and maybe I'm not so certain now. But I've really got these pocket aces for the 4-ace combo going on here, man. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but if you've got, like, at some point, sort of every poker player, like, when they have that, juicy hand or whatever, kind of, you gotta, well, I don't know. I wouldn't know, actually, but I'm thinking you have to take advantage every once in a while. Otherwise, you don't win those pots.
That's the thing, is that even if you play everything properly, sometimes you'll still lose.
That's true.
Donk on the river, as the Texas Hold'em phrase goes. And, oh, God help me with my old roommate. Like, he was good. He played perfectly. Like, there was nothing wrong with his game except for when somebody else lucked out. So there's always that matter.
Yeah.
Like, even when you're clever, sometimes you're just not lucky.
Well, the other thing about how to gamble, though, is if you can get the numbers on your side, then it's a game of averages, and you'll get up and down, and every game, sometimes you'll lose big, sometimes you'll win.
Which is why it's best to hedge your bets by trying to study the person around you and how their betting strategy goes.
But I'm saying all you need to do is just play 1,000 or 2,000 games, and over the course of time, if you have a 51%,
you should bankroll,
rate,
but
you should come out ahead.
You should,
even if occasionally you
depending
lose a
on your
big
betting
hand.
habits, though. If you wind up betting everything, you won't be able to make it to that 1,000th hand because you've got broke on 50.
Well, yeah, I think that's part of the rules. Yeah.
Well, you're not allowed to keep playing the game once you run out of money, so you have to be like lucky enough to not get knocked out.
You can get a loan, but yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's the thing. It's like cleverness, as always, is still trumped by luck.
Mm-hmm. Well, the cleverness, though, back to in clever characters and stories, one of the aspects of cleverness is sort of taking a risk and taking credit for it and saying, well, I knew that was going to happen, or something like that.
No, it's not bad. I'm going to think, though, back to the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I guess, spoiler. The person that brings the League together is the bad guy. And he does it because he wants what they have. And so he gets them together for their abilities. He gets Quartermain into the League to get Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, because no one else will be able to capture him. And he gets them all together so that he can get the samples of like who they are and what makes them special. And that's pretty darn clever. And he's a bad guy, right? So well,
it's an intelligent plan, right?
it's more than intelligent. It's clever. It's carefully calculated to get all the people that he can't control and have stuff that he wants together with an insider to get what they have. Nemo's technology, the hide formula, the vampire blood, the invisibility, stuff. Mm-hmm. And, I don't know, Quartermain's just kind of useless after, officially useless once he gets the Hyde, and Jekyll Hyde guy into the team.
Okay.
But they're all people that could stand to thwart the plan, so he figures get them all together and eliminate them all after I've taken everything that's special about them. Mm-hmm. I have what they had, they now have nothing, including their lives. So it's a very clever plan. Because if you're aiming to do big, bold plans, what you will want to do is get everything that your opponents have and make sure it's not something that you can't have yourself. And then you're going to want to make certain that they can't stop you. So all told, it was a very clever plan, a very cunning ruse.
Okay.
But that was by the bad guy. So, is it something to be, appreciable? Oh, he's the bad guy, but he was clever, so I still dig it?
I generally, you can admire cleverness in a bad guy, even while still opposing him. Assuming you're playing the role of the hero or the, against them, you can still fight them and sort of admire what they do. We see this a lot in this characters who hunt another character, like a vampire hunter, or the guy who hunts a terrorist. He learns everything about the terrorist. And, I can't remember what movie that was now, but
there's a lot of them.
I think it happened in Executive Decision, for example. I don't know if you.
I missed that one.
Or what was it? Yeah. Anyways, one of those movies. There's there's CIA people who focus on this terrorist or a crime boss.
Was that really clever sort of thing? Just knowing the inside, information? Or is it being able to get it on the fly? At the poker table, being able to learn about this guy. That's pretty clever, man.
Right. No, I wasn't saying that our hero is clever in that case. It's that they're studying a clever villain. And they're admiring that person's thought process even while abhorring some of their actions.
So at least his goals, right?
Yeah, If he has overall goals that are against the main characters, or if he just occasionally does bad things on the side, whatever.
Okay. How about in Frozen? There's a bad guy there. I guess we won't go into much for spoilers because it's still, I guess, a fairly recent movie.
Yeah.
But that was pretty clever, man. He, he wooed and he got in, and he wound up almost getting the entire, he almost won the entire pot, so to speak, in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
Because of a few lies from the very beginning. So that who he was not fully known. So he only gave, half-truths. And is that considered clever, despite the fact that he was a real despicable jerk?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So in this case, cleverness could be the one redeeming feature of a villain.
In a way, because I do think cleverness and intelligence has its own little kind of beauty to it.
What about if you're clever, but you're wind up, taking from, even your own family? I remember a story with the Anasazi spider from Africa. There's a bit where everyone's sitting down to have something to eat. There's 9 people there, Anasazi and the 8 kids. But there's only 8 units of food, whatever it is that the spiders in this story are eating, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Anasazi gives the food out to everyone and nothing to Anasazi's self. And then when they ask, why aren't you eating anything? And Anasazi goes, because there isn't enough food for everyone to go around. And now, I'll just go hungry while my kids can eat. And then the kids decide to do a nice, generous gesture. Each of them breaks the food in half and gives half to Anasazi. And in the end, Anasazi winds up with half the food. Or, 4 units of food while everyone else eats a half, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Anasazi winds up coming out ahead, in that case very much being clever enough to play the situation to the advantage, but at the cost of making sure the kids aren't eating a full amount. So as opposed to like each of them like giving like 1/9 of the food over, like Anasazi clearly, easily, happily takes like a half unit each, and thus eats like so much food.
Yeah, well, he's definitely selfish.
He or she, I guess it kind of depends on how the.
I think he's a he. I think Anansi is a.
It's one of the ones where it
character,
winds up getting kind of. Well, it's kind of like Coyote. Sometimes he, sometimes she. Trickster, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like sometimes even gender's a little bit more
like
fluid.
Bugs Bunny.
Yeah, Bugs Bunny is an amazing trickster mythological figure when you start thinking about it.
But yeah, I guess I mean the question is like, is Anansi
literally taking food out of the kids' mouths?
Yeah, but maybe it's a situation where like he needs that extra food just to make sure that he actually does survive. Like maybe there's a chance that the kids aren't going to survive, but as long as he goes on to live, he can reproduce again, have more kids, or whatever, or survive.
But would it really have been that bad for each of them to give 1/9 instead of 1/2 of their food? Because there's something to be said about like the sense of fair play, especially when it comes to family. Because sometimes it depends on who you're being clever against. It's more okay to be clever against a stranger or an opponent than it is against your own family.
Well, I mean, yeah, morally speaking, I think I would agree with that. I think I think that's not the moral thing to do. But I don't know if morality I do think, I think morality is born out of intelligence combined with self-interest, because you want to be moral to the people around you, want to be good to the people around you, so that it's kind of karma, but also it's just that they're good back to you because you live with them.
It's the golden rule.
Like that's your roommate. Like
yeah. Well, I mean, figure it like this: we'll work with another trickster figure, Loki from the Norse mythology.
Mm-hmm.
In the initial part of the stories, because like the entire thing's kind of got like a time progression, Loki was very much working with the Aesir and Vasir groups of gods. They need something, like tricky done, like, oh, hey, like we promised way more than we can really afford to give out, so like could you, trip them up to make sure they don't win the bet? And then next thing you know, Loki's like a bee, buzzing around and stinging like a dwarf in the eye. So they're not able to get things done right. It works out for the best in the end, but I mean, like Loki doesn't get his head chopped off for that, And it wasn't until later on when he starts, working against the gods that he winds up becoming an antagonistic figure. Because there are stories about like him going out and adventuring with Thor and like some other people, and they all wind up having great adventures together. And that's good stuff, man. I like hearing those stories. It's good to have a nice strong guy and a good tricky guy, and they're working together. And it's not until like Loki starts, like messing around and like messing up their lives that they decide, you know what, we're putting you under a giant snake that's spitting poison all the time. It'll go right in your eyes, and I hope you hate it forever.
Yeah.
So, like in that case, I guess, clever works, but sometimes you got to have someone who has your back, or you're not like winding up tricking.
Yeah, well, I think he has his own reasons for sort of turning against them or whatever he does. And maybe that's not the best, that's not in his best interest, because, they end up retaliating, and basically he gets stuck or whatever. So the consequences of him hurting his fellow deities is that he gets hurt. He's
effectively put into a classical version of hell. Dante's Inferno, where it's all nicely ironic.
Yeah. But in some ways, like, that's why why people felt like they needed to invent something like hell, is because people were getting away with, bad behavior, and they were not getting punished, or they were dying.
Well, that is sadly the way of life. I mean, is the lion going to go to hell for, capturing and eating so many gazelles? The gazelles certainly aren't happy with it.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of how it goes, right?
Yeah. But so like if you're clever, but you also happen to believe in an afterlife or something like that, then maybe you won't take as many, I don't know,
liberties against others.
You won't use your abilities of cleverness to, swindle other people if you think it's going to come back to bite you.
Well, I mean, let's just look at the one movie that you helped enlighten me with, Darby O'Gill and the Little People.
Yeah.
Both Darby O'Gill as well as King Brian are both tricksters against one another. They're both friends. I mean, they're willing to sit down and have drinks with one another. but they play tricks, like back and forth, and they try and out-clever each other effectively. Bit in the beginning is like Darby O'Gill talking about how he got 3 wishes, and he wished for this and that and a pot of gold. And then the King Brian, the leprechaun, says, well, why don't you make a 4th wish? I'm a generous guy. Only to reveal after making a 4th wish that if you wish for more than 3 wishes, you get none at all. And so like, oh no, my pot of gold, no, my extra wonderful stuff. Oh, I lost it all. How dare you trick me? But then later on, he's tricking, like King Brian into getting absolutely soused until the morning when he loses his powers. So they're friends, but they're tricking each other. And is it because I found it to be a very interesting dynamic with them, because with Loki, you can tell he goes from like a friend to antagonist when he starts like playing the tricks and starts messing around with the other gods. Whereas it's like with King Brian and Darby O'Gill, it just seemed to be like that was the nature of their relationship. They were, well, I guess the modern term is frenemy. But it was really, like a kind of like a intellectual rivalry between them to see who could out-clever the other in the final time. But they weren't like really, oh, I'll get you for this, like with Gargamel, and the Smurfs, I'll turn you into food yet, you little.
Although I think at some point he did basically threaten, like it was interesting because he would threaten very violent things.
Oh, they threatened things, but I mean that's just how it goes. I mean, like you get cut off in the car, you swear and you curse and you flip the guy the bird, but you don't actually go out and like smash his windows on the next red light.
Yeah, they didn't seem to be following through on those threats.
No, I mean it's just keeping face. If you get caught on the underside of this thing, you don't have the upper hand. You're allowed to curse and swear at the other guy. I'll show you on this one. It's just helps vent your frustration if nothing else, right? I mean, there was that one scene with the cat where he was effectively, threatening. He's like, oh, I'll let the cat get you and eat you without your powers here, unless you do as I say. I don't think he would have gone through with it. I think if the cat had tried anything real serious, he would have dove and he would have tackled that cat, to save, King Brian's life. But he threatened it, right? So I was like, dude, I got the upper hand, so you're going to have to, acquiesce on a few things here. So in that case, because they're working against each other, neither one actually winds up being the bad guy. Am I correct in that?
Or they're both kind of not great people, but
I think
normal.
I think all told, they were both pretty darn good people. King Brian, as it turns out, is the force keeping everyone else in line for the fairy kingdom. Like without him there, the fairy people are just doing, like what average people do. Is just we'll do this for retaliation without fully thinking through everything. Which, by the way, is a very good argument for non-democratic systems.
Okay.
When everybody has a sense of power and an average person, can get in, as opposed to the wisest person, you might not always get the best results. Sometimes the king must be, bigger, better, and think longer term than most other people to get the best long-term results for everyone.
Okay, so you're anti-democracy now.
No, I'm not anti-democracy, but it does highlight a few of the shortcomings of the system. No system is perfect.
Yeah.
And so in which case, King Brian is a very good figure, especially when it's concerned with who else you might have, replacing him should he wind up, getting eaten by a cat. But yes, as I did note that neither of them was portrayed as the bad guy in the situation, even though they were tricking one another, which normally you'd have one person being the trickster, one being the bad guy, and the honest person being the good guy, or sometimes in the case of Bugs Bunny, the trickster being the good guy and the straight man being the bad guy. But both of them were played as being antagonistic, but very much good guys. When the brass tacks fall, so to speak, right? And they're both reveal the good nature of themselves. So in that case, as we said before, if you work against your friends, and your family, that's going to wind up making you a villain for being clever. So cleverness is a very, very nuanced trait as to how it winds up getting applied.
And it's not necessarily smart to bite hands that are either feeding you or near you. Yeah, so that's unclever, but at the same time, you might use some subset of cleverness to think of a plan to screw over your friends.
If that's the way things go, but ultimately, as long as I suppose you have a good purpose, like Darby O'Gill wound up tricking the leprechauns into letting him loose by riling them up, and getting them to go out on a hunt, sort of thing. And his big purpose for why he was going to escape from them was because he was worried about like how his daughter was going to wind up being.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, his trickiness was for a very good cause in the end.
Mm-hmm.
He was perfectly fine with living, under the mountain in the fairy realm with them, provided, like his daughter would be taken care of. He didn't want to just up and leave her. I mean, like, no parent wants to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And this was an interesting case where you had the chance to effectively come back from the dead to make certain that, like your loved ones would be taken care of before you go away again.
Yeah.
So I guess there has to be a lot said for motive on this one. Like, are you tricking a person just, to get your jollies and make sure you get a good laugh out of them, or are you doing it for a good reason?
Sure, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, that's interesting because, that's, again, morality creeps in there, and it's like...
Why are you being clever?
Yeah. And then, like, are you going to have a chance... Like, what if you never get a chance to explain your actions? Your family thinks that you were just being a big dick for no reason, and then... I
do believe that's a decent plot of a lot of movies until that third act reveal was like, I was doing it to help you.
Yeah. Snape was like, wasn't it?
Snape's a very good example from the Harry Potter series. I think almost all cartoons have that for at least one point. Why is this villain? Why is this hero turned villainous? Oh no, he was doing it to try and save us all along, but he couldn't explain it. Otherwise, his plan would be, thrown to ruin.
Yeah.
So on the other hand, maybe we shouldn't look too much into like the reasoning as to why you're being clever, because you can also use, like why you're using your strength for like other people. Like if you're not a clever hero, you can be a strong hero. But like what differentiates a strong hero from the brute? Sort of thing. It's just like how you use your strength and why you're using your strength.
Okay.
So maybe we shouldn't be looking too deep behind the reasons. Suffice to say that the reasons do help determine why you're either a good guy or bad.
Sure. Yeah.
So I suppose this is getting towards the end of it. So I guess we'll give a quick little blurb as to how people can get a hold of us, and then final thoughts.
Okay, sounds good. Send us email, thesimulationist@gmail.com is our email address. You can send us long tirades or essays or novels, whatever you want to send us. You can, if you have something shorter that you want to share with the whole community, facebook.com/thesimulationist is our Facebook page. That's a great place to interact.
And we do try and check that one daily, so you should get a fairly good turnaround from us on that one if you want to ask a question.
Absolutely. Facebook. And we're also on youtube.com/thesimulationist in case you can't find us any other way. Also has comments enabled there, so you can comment back and forth. In case, that just might be your thing. If you want to comment just a very short little thought or send me a little something, I'm on Twitter at Josh_Trelaffin, TRESLAFFIN, Josh_Trelaffin on Twitter.
Yeah.
And also, we have a Patreon page. It is pretty much fully up and running. I would love to test it out with some donations. So here, this is the part where I beg for donations on patreon.com/thesimulationist. And you'll see, you can pledge per episode or something like that. So it's
we are thinking about adding goals. We get so much money a month sort of thing. We'll do something else. Besides more than just an extra podcast or something. We'll see if we can put out some other content for people.
That's right. If you look at the page right now, there are some goals, but it's pretty vague. It says, maybe we'll do something. But yeah, if we start to see a little bit of money, maybe we'll think of some more things. We'll add some actual, real tangible stuff that we can do. We'd love to do things for people too.
Yeah.
We're
throwing the idea ball around, off camera, so to speak.
Yeah. And our listeners can definitely toss us some ideas too.
Yeah,
if there's something
you
want
guys say hey, I really like this idea you guys had. Could you please try fleshing it out a little bit? Maybe putting up as a PDF or something for you. Yeah, let us know. By all means, let us know.
Indeed. Is that all the things? You can subscribe on iTunes. There might be some hiccups. Our podcast has gone down and then up again, but it should be up still. And then as we transition to a different feed, but don't worry about that too much. Just if you don't see the podcast, maybe do a little extra searching around. We may have posted it somewhere else. You should still see it on the Facebook and the blog and my Twitter. So hopefully that's all that covers good enough. Subscribe on iTunes, write us a review if you can. That would help us out a lot, and tell a friend.
Thank you. So final thoughts about cleverness. I can understand why not a lot of clever heroes are out there compared to others. It's very hard to write.
I feel like cleverness is something that's really tried a lot.
It's tried, but whether or not it succeeds is another matter. Because there's a difference between being clever and then just withholding information to make a person seem smarter.
Yeah, well, sometimes you can argue that, so-and-so wasn't clever, they were lucky. So-and-so wasn't clever, they just lied. So-and-so wasn't clever, they just took advantage of someone trusting or something like that. Or,
like the author clearly switched things around at the last moment to make it seem like this, but they really pulled, a solution right out the back.
Yeah, or they were facing a really dumb opponent or something like that.
Cleverness winds up being that one bit that people wind up talking about later on. It's like, oh my god, I can't believe he did it. It was all right there, man. It was all right there. I didn't even see it until he pulled the solution out from there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of the things I quite like for webcomics, as I mentioned before, is Raven's Dojo. It's a little risque, I'm not gonna lie, like adults sort of thing, because it's some stuff for nudity, but it's incredibly clever. Both in wordplay as well as, turning what looks like just absolutely, there's no way impossible they could ever get a victory out of this, and turning it into a victory. It is really the hero's forte in that regard, and that's one of the reasons why I very much like it. And that's, I think, very clever about how they do that, because it's like the answer was there, and bam, it's all that way, and then they managed to switch it around from there's no way we can possibly win to there's no way we can possibly lose on a dime, and it just seems so well written every time I read it.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean that's the sort of cleverness I'm looking for, and why I don't see it very often. It's the kind of stuff where the answer is right there and you don't see it until they point it out to you.
Yeah, and I like to think of cleverness too. I'm not sure if I got to this, but it's a bit like a chess game in that each player sees so many moves ahead, and the winner, the more clever character, seems to be the one who sees a few more moves ahead than the other one,
Well, okay, let's not get too advanced here. For some people, just being able to see all the moves is a very good step.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to 3 moves ahead, sort of thing. So just being able to have awareness of the board as to who does what and where you're vulnerable and where you're strong. That's I think for most at least casuals, players out there, that's a pretty good level of awareness. And just being able to see the best moves, to even think what is the most likely next move is going to be, that's pretty clever. So let's not get too big on ourselves about being able to think 2 or 3 moves in advance.
Well, and to think of a bad guy that gets thwarted, sometimes they make a stupid mistake, but sometimes it's just the fact that there's so many pieces in action that it's easy to forget about.
Think all solutions out.
Yeah, you forget about this one little piece that sort of wasn't doing anything for a long time, and then suddenly the hobbits are in your Mount Doom or whatever.
Oh, I suppose the Extraordinary Gentleman, once they got the skin samples and scrapings from the Invisible Man, they basically forgot about him and just imagined, everyone's going to blame him for all this nefarious goings-on. When he winds up, sneaking aboard, their escape ship and following along. So, they were able to think up a lot of stuff, but they weren't able to think, of everything, and to realize that sometimes the best thing to do is just, shut up and stay out of sight.
Mm-hmm.
When you believe everyone's going to think about you, because they didn't plan on him being clever as well as invisible.
Yeah, and him seeing the same kind of moves.
Oh, what's the thing? Is he saw what was going on and he planned. Is there's no way anyone's going to believe it's not me. I'm the Invisible Man. I am a sneaky guy by default.
Mm-hmm.
So of course they're going to blame me. So maybe I'll just shut up and just follow along for other people and just tag along until I can make myself useful. That was very clever, which allowed him to become more than a one-note character of yes, I take my cloak off and all of a sudden hey, I'm invisible. Woo.
So another, if we can go a little longer.
Okay. Tangents.
The idea of cleverness is integral to that idea is that you're able to see things from your enemy's perspective. Like, what are they planning on doing next? Like, how is their game plan set up?
So then maybe it's just a grander vision. You're able to see what you see and what they see. You just have a wider, view of the situation than others.
Yeah, although I just remembered, let's talk about the Princess Bride really quick.
Okay,
the
that's
scene
very good.
with the
Vicini.
iocane powder.
Yes.
And,
that was incredibly clever. I mean, should we spoiler alert this?
Well, we'll spoil it. So this is your spoiler alert.
It was in both, containers. He put a little bit of the iocane powder in both ones, so that no matter which one Vicini chose, it had the poison in it.
But he also hid the entire challenge in this idea of a challenge of another challenge of cleverness.
Which is the thing. I mean, like, that is, I think, the essence of cleverness. If you don't like option A and you don't like option B, make option C. Mm. And that's something I've always liked to abide by, that if you don't like any of the options presented with you, find the other one that is okay.
But sometimes option C is just going to be like a different brute force option. So sometimes it's like,
but so long as it's the option
you're clever by not being clever.
As long as it's the option that the people didn't see, I mean, brute force can be the clever option in this case.
I think so.
So, in which case, yes, I think that is a very good example of cleverness. And thank you for reminding us of that one, Josh.
Good thing to close out on.
Yes, I think that's a great highlight because, I mean, that was an option. It was all right there, but it didn't get pointed out until he explains it, like what he did. That's a great cleverness because anybody who is smart enough and clever enough should have been able to see it as an option.
Yeah, well, okay, so you
the
imagine
concept that he lied that there was poison in one cup when there was really poison in both cups is incredibly clever, and that a person thinking fast enough and clever enough should have been able to realize, what if he poisoned them both?
I guess, well, the thinking that would have to go into that is if he poisoned them both, then he must have, like, a solution. Like, either he's not going to actually drink it, or it turns out he developed an immunity. So that has to occur to you, too. You have to be aware of.
Well, he should have been fairly knowledgeable about it to have some sort of countermeasure to it, because, I mean, he is carrying it on his person. So if he's the guy presenting the poison onto the table, then he should be the guy that has, like, at least an antidote. Like, they're both poisonous, but I've got the antidote right here. Okay, now I'm not going to die.
I guess, yeah.
Which also would have been a nice, clever option, too, to have him finish with, it's like, Vicini, yes, we have both drunk the poison, but I've got the antidote. Oh, now you're going to die. Tulipimsky.
Actually, yeah. And I guess that's the other thing is he trusts the guys, like, well, maybe this
if there
is
was an
cleverness
antidote,
too.
it was mentioned there was no antidote for it.
Yeah, but he trusts the word of the guy, like, just totally stranger, the Dread Pirate Roberts, we're presuming, or whatever he thinks he is. He takes his word on a matter of
life and death,
but it's like, basically, okay, so how you do this is you throw out, there's the challenge. You're throwing out the challenge of cleverness. Okay. You're like, how clever are you? And then, so he's intrigued, right? You throw out this little bit of scientific information, which turns out to be, like, sort of not full truth. But then he's like, oh, I like scientific information. Oh, this is good. Like, I'm a scholar. I like that. So he takes it in. He believes it. And then I think that's the trick, is convincing him to believe it by also throwing a couple other pieces of stuff at him at the same time.
I recall one in the comics, something similar. Amadeus Cho, he's part of the Hulk group of people. I think he is currently the Hulk right now. Mm-hmm. But in it, he's a super genius, sort of thing, like Wile E. Coyote kind of wishes he was. And he's encountering another super genius who's manufactured all the bad stuff that's going on, sort of thing. And he's the thing, and it comes down to an option. The bad guy's got a gun, and Amadeus Cho has got his brain. Now, the bad guy is going to try and fire, and it's going to ricochet somewhere around. And if the bad guy is smart enough, he will shoot and kill Amadeus Cho with this one bullet. If Amadeus Cho can outthink him, he can dodge the bullet and thus, punch out the bad guy. And I guess, spoiler alert in this one, Amadeus Cho's option was to leave the room.
Mm-hmm.
Because the bad guy wanted to prove himself to be the smarter of the two, and his option was, I'm just not going to play the game. And in the end, the guy winds up, like, when he realizes that he can't beat that strategy, he realizes he's not the smarter guy, and he uses the one bullet for himself.
Mm-hmm.
In which case, yeah, like it's not just a matter of being able to outthink the premise, but to, like sometimes disregard the entire plot itself and come up with something outside of that.
Yeah, that's good. I guess, yeah, and the other thing is you can trap your enemy in their own ego, especially if you can frame something as a challenge of wits. Then be like, well, I'll win a challenge of wits, and then that's when you've already won, because once they accept the challenge, well, there's no way to win.
Which is why Amadeus Cho won, because he decided not to work with his ego in that one. It's like, oh, I don't care who the hell's smarter than us, and like, I don't care that you've killed my parents. I'm going to walk out of this room, and I'm never going to see you again. You are not going to be my master villain. You are not going to be my arch nemesis. You are just going to be a footnote in my thing. You are going to be a nothing, because that is what you are. And he just walks on out. So yeah, a cleverness would be basically always having a skepticism. Don't take anything that your opponent says as 100% true, at least. Yeah, as much as you. I mean, it's very hard because there's so much in the world that you just have to make assumptions. You're always living by assumptions. But I guess you got to try and see which assumptions are not going to apply in this case. Like it might be something you always take for granted, but this time you can't. They tell me that 9/11 was not an inside operation because of this, but based on this here and based on that there. Yeah, sometimes you can go a little with conspiracy theory if you wind up taking too much stuff on assumption without just like accepting. Yeah. So just don't trust, and don't let your ego get in the way. Like, don't let your thinking that... Yeah, don't let the ego be like your blinders, man. Because that's what it'll do. It'll make you think in a small little box. Whereas you take the ego away and you have a much wider perspective to think from. And when you got the wider perspective, you can be that clever person. Yeah, and don't let it necessarily be about winning. Not that game. Win a bigger game. Let them win the small game. You win the big one. Yeah, I guess I mean win life. Because, we're nesting sort of games within games. And life is a big game, so try and... So I think that's a great final note as to how to see it, and rules to define, how to write your clever character or how to play your clever character. Yeah, I think we gave some good thought to it. I've been Josh Levin. I've been Ryan Kirkby. You'll hear from us again next week. Send money on Patreon.